Mid-October sun cracked across the high-rise silhouettes of Lagos Island, turning the lagoon to molten silver. Yet behind the 12-foot gates of Obalua Mansion in Ikoyi, everything felt stale. Air, light, even hope. The estate's owner, Chief Adebanjo Obalua, 46, Africa's most lionized fintech billionaire, had not stepped outside his teak-paneled bedroom for 7 months. What began as a stubborn cough after a Davos flight had metastasized into something no specialist could pin down. Swiss pulmonologists called it idiopathic pulmonary decline. A Harvard neurologist whispered about an autoimmune anomaly. An Ankara herbalist muttered of spiritual imbalance. 23 experts, 23 failures. In boardrooms, jittery investors wondered if Obalua Holdings might soon trade under a different name. In tabloids, conspiracy theories sprouted, poison, witchcraft. Downstairs, a different drama unfolded. Izin Okafor, 22, arrived that morning clutching a plastic travel bag and her late father's weather-beaten nursing textbook. Villagers in Abi Estate had pooled fare for her bus to Lagos, praying she'd find work in one big man's house. The job agency posted her as housemaid, live-in, urgent, but didn't mention she would be mopping a mansion haunted by the echo of failing lungs. Izin's first task was laundry. As she carried fresh linens up the grand staircase, she passed portraits of the chief in healthier years, handshake with the president here, keynote at TEDx there, and felt a strange tug. Admiration, yes, but also uneasy recognition of exhaustion behind his grin. At the sickroom door she paused, muted coughs rasped within, each followed by electronic beeps. Inside, dim light revealed a once muscular man dwarfed by oxygen tanks, his eyes the color of dusk. When those eyes met hers, Izin froze, yet she also sensed inexplicably that his survival might hinge on someone who did not wear a white coat. Outside, rusting wrought iron gates creaked in the sea breeze, as if the city itself were exhaling a warning. Money could gild walls, but it could not always buy breath. Rain drummed a jittery cadence on the mansion's skylights that night, as if Lagos itself were restless. In the dim laundry alcove, Izin folded bedsheets while replaying the billionaire's hollow gaze. Every few minutes she glanced up at the ceiling vent. A faint, musty odor seeped through the slats, spicy, metallic, wrong. She pinched her nose, telling herself it was just coastal humidity. Yet a half-forgotten village warning echoed. When air tastes of iron, spirits are hungry. Upstairs, Chief Adebanjo wrestled with sleep. Sensors taped to his chest clicked softly, charting each rattled breath. He could feel the disease inching inward like a slow tide, but tonight another presence pressed closer. Dread. He dreamed of driving across Third Mainland Bridge at dusk, the lagoon beneath turning viscous and black. Halfway across, traffic froze. Horns wailed. Drivers fled. He alone remained, sealed inside the car as oily water rose, filling the cabin, invading his lungs. Just before it reached his eyes, a silhouette appeared outside the windshield, a young woman holding a lamp. Her face blurred, but her calm unsettled him more than the flood. He woke with a jolt, tasting blood at the back of his throat. At 2 a.m., a power flicker darkened the eastern wing. Emergency batteries hummed alive, but the HVAC units coughed to a stop. The monitors in the sick room bleated warnings. A night nurse scrambled for a technician. None were on site. In the corridor, she collided with Izin, who was lugging towels to the linen cupboard. "Generator glitch," the nurse hissed, voice thin with panic. "If the vents stall, carbon dioxide will spike," he could code. "I can help reset the breaker," Izin offered, recalling how she rewired kerosene lanterns back home. "You're a maid, not maintenance," the nurse brushed past. Izin's cheeks burned. Still, something propelled her up the narrow service stairs toward the attic electrical panel. Halfway, she halted. Air grew denser, tinged with the same metallic musk. She pressed her palm to the wall. It felt damp. When she rapped the plaster, it answered with a hollow, almost spongy thud. Mold, the thought iced her spine. Meanwhile, Chief Adebanjo's sister, Mrs. Tinuade Ojo, stormed into the sick room, smartphones in both hands. "The South Korean immunologist just canceled. Visa holdup," she snapped at the nurse. Her perfume, sharp gardenia filled the room. The chief coughed violently. The heart monitor leapt. Mrs. Ojo's irritation morphed to fear, but she masked it with anger. Why can't anyone keep him stable for 48 hours? Lightning forked outside, illuminating dust motes swirling in the stagnant air. They glimmered like flecks of ash. Down in the breaker room, Ezin located the trip switch and shoved it upward. Fluorescent bulbs buzzed back to life, vents whirred. But the instant airflow returned, she saw spores, black-green featherlight, puff from a cracked duck seal and dance in the flashlight beam. She covered her mouth, heart pounding. If this is inside the ducks, he's breathing it nonstop. She peeled a latex glove from her pocket, scooped a clump into an empty pill bottle, and tucked it into her apron. Footsteps thudded above. Voices shouted for backup oxygen. Instinct screamed, "Run this to a doctor." Yet another voice, the weary, suspicious one, asked, "What if the doctors don't want to see it?" As thunder rattled the roof, Ezin stared at the swirling spores, realizing the billionaire's mystery illness might not be rare, but rather deliberately unseen. And if that was true, she had just stepped into a war where credentials mattered less than courage, and where maids were expected to stay silent. He awoke exhausted, throat corrugated with pain. Overnight charts showed another oxygen dip, yet, inexplicably, his dream had changed. No drowning this time. Instead, he'd stood on Third Mainland Bridge, while a thin thread of red yarn stretched from his chest to a distant silhouette, Ezin, who tugged it gently, guiding him toward light. When he opened his eyes, the thread was gone, but he could still feel its pull. Across the room, his sister Mrs. Ojo conferred with the incoming specialist, Dr. Matthias Vogel, a gaunt German whose briefcase clinked with ampoules. Vogel scanned the chart, muttered about inflammatory cascades, and proposed plasmapheresis at once. Adebanjo wanted to ask why every treatment worsened him, but fatigue nailed his tongue. Below stairs, Ezin rinsed the pill bottle of spores in weak bleach, careful not to destroy evidence, and tucked it inside her nursing textbook. Courage seesawed with dread. The household hierarchy was granite. Maids did not lecture doctors. Still, she marched to the sick wing, heart ricocheting. Outside the door, she overheard Vogel. "Gene silencing therapy requires weekly sessions. I can supervise for a considerable fee." Mrs. Ojo's voice, "Money is no object, doctor, provided results follow." The words clanged against Ezin's eardrums. Money is no object, but truth apparently was. She knocked. A nurse opened, eyebrow arched. "I have something important for Dr. Vogel," Ezin whispered, displaying the bottle. "Kitchen matters wait," the nurse snapped, attempting to slam the door. Before it closed, Adebanjo caught a glimpse of Ezin's worried face and the bottle. He lifted a trembling hand, small rebellion that spoke volumes. Vogel sighed and allowed her in. She explained, "Vent mold, trip breaker, spores on airflow." Vogel peered at the sample, expression unreadable. He placed it on a tray. "Contamination from ordinary dust," he pronounced. "Irrelevant." He labeled the bottle discard, then turned to calibrate a dialysis machine. Ezin's stomach dropped. She reached for the bottle, but Mrs. Ojo intercepted, eyes flaring. "Do not disturb the doctor again. One more stunt and you're off payroll." Ezin fled, pulse hammering. In the corridor, she leaned against the Sango bronze mask. Its metal felt icy, as though absorbing her despair. Village clinic, 2 years earlier. Her father coughing up rust-colored phlegm while the pharmacist shrugged, "Come back with payment." She'd rushed home, sold her only goat, returned too late. Her father died that night, lungs drowned from untreated infection. She had vowed never to let poverty silence her voice again. Late afternoon, plasmapheresis began. Adebanjo's blood cycled through tubing the color of brake fluid. Chills racked him. Every so often he glanced at the doorway, hoping for the maid's return, because in her eyes he'd seen unfiltered honesty, something missing from everyone else's. Downstairs, Ezin paced the service courtyard, wrestling internal conflict. Stay silent and safe, or risk job and deportation from the mansion's world of marble to expose the truth. Symbolism flared, the red yarn of her dream, connection over hierarchy. She remembered a cousin working night shift at Lagos University Teaching Hospital's microbiology lab. If she could get a sample there, proof would speak louder than any resume. But the vents were now sealed by maintenance on Vogel's orders. She needed help. At dusk, she found Tope, the mansion's driver, tuning his old hollow-body guitar beside the garage, an instrument once owned by the chief himself. "Brother, can you unlock the attic hatch for me tonight? It might save his life. Tope studied her, then the guitar strings quivering under coastal wind. I owe that man a career he sponsored long ago, he murmured. Meet me at midnight. Tension cinched tight. Only hours to snatch evidence before Vogel's therapy plunged the chief beyond rescue. Rain clouds massed again over Lagos, drumming a warning rhythm on the mansion roof, like a ticking clock made of water. Corrugated roofing popped in the cool, rain-soaked air while the mansion below slept under dim security lights. Tope jimmied the service hatch with a screwdriver, then boosted Ezin inside. The space was coffin low, lined with insulation and a latticework of ducts. She flicked on her headlamp, its beam cut through billowing black-green colonies carpeting the metal like malignant velvet. Spores puffed with each breath she took. Her throat tightened, not from mold, but memory. Flashback, the night her father's fever peaked. She had climbed the clay wall of their goat shed to pry loose a jar of camphor leaves, her only medicine. The desperation in the climb felt identical to this crawl, except tonight another person's life hung in the balance. Beneath them, the dialysis machine clicked. Chief Adebanjo shivered violently while fresh plasma coursed through him. In semi-lucid flashes, he felt the attic crawl space, smelled damp earth, heard wooden boards groan. Dreams and reality braided together. He sensed Ezin above, threading that same red yarn through ducts, tugging him away from darkness. Back in the attic, Ezin's gloves glistened with sludge. She scraped samples into autoclave vials Tope had borrowed from the medical cart, sealed them, and whispered, "This is enough." When she turned, her headlamp caught a patch of insulation chewed through, wires naked and sparking. She realized the breaker trip hadn't been random. Humidity and mold were eating the mansion's very nerves. Suddenly, bootsteps pounded on the attic ladder. Tope mouthed, "Security!" Panic surged. Ezin stashed vials in her braids, dusted hands, and slipped down a laundry chute while Tope slammed the hatch. She tumbled into a linen bin 3 floors below, heart jackhammering. Moments later, she burst into the sick room, clothes flecked with insulation. The night nurse gasped. Dr. Vogel spun, syringe poised. "Stop the exchange. Mold toxins are fueling a cytokine storm. I have proof." Vogel, cold. "Delusions of a housemaid, out!" He depressed the plunger. The chief's back arched. Alarms screeched. Ezin's resolve crystallized. She reached for the calabash of vapor she'd hidden in a cupboard earlier, filled with Uda, bitter cola, lemongrass, and shoved it beneath the chief's nose. The room fractured into dual POV. Chief Adebanjo, a searing bolt ran through his chest. Then astonishingly, air slipped deeper than it had in months. The drowning dream cracked, rain washed the black lagoon clear. He tasted citrus and wood smoke, smelled village hearths he'd forgotten since boarding school in England. Tears, relief, remembrance welled. She felt his hand clamp hers, frail but decisive. The heart monitor steadied. Nurses exchanged stunned glances. Vogel's composure shattered. He barked, "Herbal contaminants will void every control reading." Mrs. Ojo stormed in, saw the improvised treatment, and lunged for the calabash. Adebanjo's voice, raw yet resonant, cut through. "Touch it and you leave." Silence detonated across the room. He turned to Vogel. "You've treated me for profit, not cure. You're dismissed, effective now." Ezin trembled, not with fear, but release. Internal conflict resolved. She had gambled her livelihood and won truth. Adebanjo squeezed her fingers. "Stay. Finish what you started." Downstairs, Tope revved the Corolla. A cooler packed with mold samples sat on the passenger seat, bound for Lagos University Teaching Hospital. Sirens of a private security escort blipped to life. The driver of a billionaire would break speed limits tonight in service of the poorest Maid's hunch. Above, rain eased to a whisper. The Sango mask in the hallway caught distant lightning, its bronze eyes briefly gleaming as if endorsement from a thunder god. In that charged midpoint, hierarchy inverted. Maid became healer, tycoon became believer, and the mansion itself seemed to exhale, trading moldy dread for the first clean breath of possibility. A gray-pink dawn seeped through the blinds, and with it came fresh dread. Chief Adebanjo's vitals, briefly steady after Ezin's vapor, tumbled again. Fever 40.5 degrees Celsius, pulse skittering toward tachycardia. The calabash still hissed faint steam, but his skin blazed. Septic shock loomed. The new on-call physician, Dr. Okan, could only buy hours with broad-spectrum antibiotics and chilled saline. Across town, Tope screeched into Lagos University Teaching Hospital's side gate, cooler in hand. Inside, the microbiology registrar frowned at the forms. Chain of custody signatures, authorization from a consultant. We have the Obalalua Foundation's backing, Tope bluffed. The registrar shook her head. Molds fall under biohazard protocol, no exceptions. Tope's phone died mid-plea, minutes bled. Back at the mansion, Izin watched chart numbers wobble. Every beep felt accusatory. Proof or nothing. She rang Tope, voicemail, panic stretched taut. Meanwhile, Mrs. Ojo convened a hushed meeting in the study with estate manager Kolade. Papers littered the mahogany desk, internal emails between Vogel and a shell company billing 38 million naira in extended care consultancy. If this leaks, auditors will torch the share price, Kolade muttered. Then muzzle it, Ojo snapped. She ordered security to confiscate every external sample to prevent defamation. Guards fanned out. Ezin spotted them heading for the garages, realized the mold vials were in play. A surge of determination ignited. No one will bury this evidence. She slipped from the ward, skirted CCTV blind spots learned during laundry runs, and intercepted a junior guard outside. Madam Ojo needs these linens right now. Urgent. She thrust a hamper into his arms. Inside lay nothing but bleach-soaked sheets. While he staggered off, she sprinted for the front gate. Tope, still at the hospital, finally barged into the chief pathologist's office and spilled the story. The pathologist, Professor Adigan, gray-haired, once Adebanjo's pro bono mentor, hissed, "Why didn't you lead with his name?" He authorized immediate spectroculture. Swabs revealed Stachybotrys chartarum, the toxic black mold, plus Aspergillus fumigatus, both lethal to compromised lungs. But Adigan frowned deeper. Colony counts suggested deliberate amplification. Someone had let the ducks rot. Before Tope could photograph the printout, power cut, hospital generator stalled. In the darkness, a figure yanked the cooler, bolting down the corridor. Tope chased, collided with gurneys, but the thief vanished into stairwells. He rang Izin. Her phone buzzed just as she dashed past security booths. Breathless, she gleaned enough. Results positive, samples stolen. Back in the mansion, Adebanjo's blood pressure crashed. Dr. Okan prepped adrenaline. Izina burst in, hair wild with rain, and grabbed the chief's hand. They're trying to erase the truth, but the lab already logged the cultures in their system. Digital records can't be burned. Adebanjo's shadowed eyes flickered. Fury cut through fever. Summoning what voice remained, he commanded Dr. Okan to open a group video call with Professor Adigan, board legal counsel, and national press contacts. The doctor, startled, complied on a tablet. Adigan's face appeared, candle lit by emergency backup. "Chief, the mold is verified. Moreover, the pattern indicates prolonged neglect, possibly criminal." Gasps rippled through staff, now clustering at the doorway. Ojo tried to interject. Adebanjo raised a trembling hand. "From this moment, no one leaves these grounds. Every maintenance record, every invoice, goes to Adigan's panel." He turned to Ezeni. "You, Nurse Okafor, take charge of environmental decontamination. Authority signed." He scrawled initials on a digital form, finger shaking but resolute. Power pulsed behind the gesture. Billionaire leverage wielded for truth. At that instant, monitors steadied slightly, as if his body ratified the decision. A collective breath filled the room, the pivot from helpless illness to actionable battle. The crisis still raged, but the tide had turned. Secrecy cracked, hierarchy inverted, and the Maid's impossible quest became the mansion's official mandate. The mansion's foyer became a war room. Power had returned, but tension still crackled like exposed wiring. Professor Adigan's voice rang from the sick room tablet, ordering court-sealed biohazard teams to arrive within the hour. Estate staff huddled in whispered factions, some loyal to Chief Adebanjo, others fearful of Mrs. Ojo, whose authority now teetered. Chief Adebanjo struggled to sit upright, sweat glazing his brow. Every inhalation rasped, but his eyes blazed clearer than they had in months. All his life he'd solved crises by calculation. This one demanded something rarer, humility. He beckoned Izin closer. 7 months I paid experts to save me, he rasped, voice a gravel whisper. But it was your courage that broke the fog. Guide me now. The words detonated through hierarchy like dynamite. Azin swallowed, no longer just the maid, but acting lead of environmental triage. Internal conflict melted into fierce resolve. She accepted the charge. Hazmat technicians in canary yellow suits arrived, but Mrs. Ojo blocked the corridor. Containment jeopardizes shareholder confidence. We handle this privately, she hissed. Azin stepped forward, clutching the printed mycology report Adigan had emailed. Private silence already cost the chief his health. Another hour could cost his life and yours when criminal negligence surfaces. To the shock of gathered staff, Chief Adebanjo's voice roared from behind. "Stand down, Tinuad." He was out of bed, draped in a robe, oxygen cannula trailing. Nurses fluttered, but he planted bare feet on marble. Symbolic, decisive. Years of boardroom power suffused the gesture. He was reclaiming stewardship not just of his company, but his body. Mrs. Ojo's facade cracked. Tears welled, fear, guilt, love twisted together. "I was scared to watch you fade. I thought prolonging care bought time," she whispered. "Bought time or billing," he countered softly, yet without venom. He opened his arms. She crumpled against him. Cameras from Adigan's team captured it all. Transparency replacing secrecy. Transformation complete. The billionaire who once prized control now embraced vulnerability. The sister who clutched reputation now surrendered to truth. Under Ezin's direction, ventilation fans were killed, negative pressure scrubbers deployed, and every duct panel unscrewed. Black sheets of stachybotrys peeled like rotted wallpaper. Hazmat crews sealed canisters. Spore counts on hallway monitors plummeted. Symbolism coursed through the mansion. Poisonous air expelled, choking silence broken. In the sick room, Azin brewed a final calabash infusion, steam swirling with Uda, bitter cola, lemongrass, and now a sprig of pawpaw leaf 4. Professor Adigan recommended for its mild bronchodilation. She placed it beneath Adebanjo's nose while purified oxygen flowed from a portable HEPA unit. He closed his eyes, breathing deeper than memory allowed. Flashbacks surged inside him. Boarding school dormitory, asthma attack at age 13. A matron steadied him with eucalyptus vapor. He'd vowed then to build a life where no one felt helpless again, yet money and ambition had led him into a gilded suffocation. Tears slipped. Catharsis tasted of citrus and regret. He opened his eyes to Azin. "When I recover, Obalolua Holdings will fund a public health grant to eradicate toxic housing in Lagos and a nursing scholarship in your name." Azin's throat tightened. She shook her head, humbled. "Make the scholarship plural," she whispered. "There are many voices like mine waiting to be heard." Adebanjo smiled, transformation sealed by shared purpose. Crisis had forged a new order. The maid became healer advocate, the billionaire humbled champion of reforms. Together they stepped into air that finally smelled of nothing but possibility. 3 weeks later, pale gold harmattan light drifted over Lagos Island as a modest crowd gathered on the lawn of Obalolua Mansion, now ringed with fresh palm fronds and industrial HEPA towers still purring like guardians. A low dais bore 2 microphones, one for Chief Adebanjo, the other for Azina Okafor. No velvet ropes, no PR handlers, just journalists, community health workers, and a handful of curious neighbors who had watched convoys of hazmat vans haul away sealed drums of fungal debris. When Adebanjo appeared, the hush broke into surprised applause. His frame was leaner, but color had returned to his cheeks. The oxygen cannula was gone. He walked unaided, though a quiet tope hovered close, guitar case in hand like a talisman. Azin followed, wearing a crisp white blouse with the navy and gold badge of Lagos State College of Nursing, her new school, tuition underwritten by the Breathe initiative the chief was about to launch. He spoke first, voice firm yet unhurried. "I once believed wealth could outsource vigilance. It cannot. If invisible spores can humble a billionaire in Ikoyi, imagine what they do in tenement blocks without filters or voice. Today we commit $5 billion to eradicate toxic mold in public schools, hospitals, and low-income housing, and we fund 20 nursing scholarships a year, starting with Miss Okafor, whose courage kept me alive." Gasps, then cheers. Azina stepped forward, palms damp but steady. She thanked the village women who had taught her to listen to air and to elders who taught that healing is service, not status. She ended in Igbo, then English. May we learn to hear every quiet cough before it becomes a scream. Cameras flashed. Wind rattled the clean Sango mask now rehung above the entry, its fierce bronze tongue seeming at last to bless rather than warn. As the formalities closed, Tope opened the guitar case. Chief and Maid, now healer and partner, strummed the soft Yoruba lullaby that had pierced the mansion's darkest night. The melody floated over manicured hedges, across the lagoon's silver skin, and up to the bridge where traffic roared on, unaware that somewhere below the din, two improbable allies had rewritten the script that money, alone, could never finish.